All right, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to our year in review video. So this was the extra video we talked about putting out this week as we start to approach about the halfway mark. We're here now in week 7. We're pretty close to that halfway point. So I figured what we'll do is let's stop, take a break for a minute before we do the predictions for this coming week, which we'll do that video tomorrow and send it out. But for today, let's do a little bit of review on really the first half and how we think everybody's doing. So here's what we did for today's video. So we'll try not to make it too long, but we've got two main things that we want to go over. One is some rankings. So we're going to go through every team, and I've assigned a grade to them. And it looks at a few things. It's not just your record. So we're not just looking and say, Ian gets an A and Jeremy gets an F because of their records. It's much more than that. I'm really going to dig into each team and look at, one, how do they draft? Two, how have they used their team? How have they used waivers? Have they made trades? What does it look like going in the future? Injuries play a big part of that because it's, a team like Will, for example, who got hit with a ton of injuries. It's just bad luck sometimes. So, the grades kind of really look at all of that stuff. But of course, if you're 1-5 like a Jeremy, it's going to be hard, right, to say that you got an A on the first half when you're 1-5. But then, you look at someone like Ian, who is 5-1, and it's probably hard to say he doesn't get an A based on how his team has performed, how he drafted, and things like that. So, but I figure you're all kind of curious on my thoughts on how you're doing so far in the year. And then once we talk about that, we're going to put that into some new playoff predictions. So I've got 6 teams now that I'm picking for my new playoff predictions, and it has changed. There's actually 4 that stayed the same from what I originally picked, and 2 that have changed. And probably one of them, you can probably imagine who that is based on record. But the other one might shock you on who I actually picked is going to be in, and then, of course, who is going to be out. But we'll look at that here towards the end. So as for right now, let's jump into the first half grades. So we'll start bottom up. So I've started with Jeremy here. So Jeremy, he's 1-5. And if you look at, how the grades could be, right, it could be anywhere from an A to an F. And like we said, it just doesn't mean because you're 1-5, you're automatically going to get a D or an F. I'm looking at a ton of things. For Jeremy, I'm giving him a C. Here is why. He's done trades. He's active on the waiver wire. He's spent about half of his waiver money so far. He has just been, if you look at who's on his team, Ford and Nakua and he's picked all them up. He's been very, very active on the waiver wire, and the man's trying. It seems like I'm always seeing him pick up players, drop players, move players around, and things like that. So it's only a matter of time before I believe that Jeremy's going to start winning some games. Here, he's just had some really bad luck with some of the teams he's faced, but I have confidence that his team is going to turn around and he's going to have a better second half. So I'm giving Jeremy overall a C. Next in line, then we've got John. John is 2-4, so a little bit better than what Jeremy is at 1-5. For John, I'm also giving John a C, and here's why. So for John, some things that he's had going for him, right? He's made a trade, which is, definitely a plus in this league. I look at that as like you're really trying to better your team. He's also very active on waivers. But he's 2-4, and some of his players just don't step up and perform at certain time frames. Some of that is, who he has drafted as well, and maybe hasn't produced or not been consistent. Well, whichever way you look at it, unfortunately, it hasn't given John many points for. He only has 629 points. It just, some bad luck in scoring, some bad luck in matchups. I know for this week, he's not predicted a ton of points, and that's going to overall hurt as we're looking at playoff predictions and things like that of how many points he has scored. But I love John that he's all over his team. He's making trades. He's picking up people. Again, he's only 2-4. You win 2 games in a row, and you're back to 500, and you're back to where you really want to be after like 8 games. But for overall, unfortunately, John, I'm going to say as of right now, give a C. But we'll do grading again at the end of the year. We'll see if we can turn that around. Next in line here, we've got Will. Will's also at 2 and 4. But for Will, I'm actually going to give a little better grade. And I'm giving Will a B. And if you wonder why, it's injuries. The man drafted well. I mean, he drafted Chubb. I was planning on taking Chubb. I know just Will got him before I did. He drafted Connor, which was a great pickup, of course. And they're both hurt. Richardson was a great pickup, for the couple of weeks he actually played or a few quarters he played, but got injured, which, with him and running a lot and so on, I think, some of us had a feeling that could happen. But, just think of what if none of them got injured and they're actually playing every week, like Will would, probably be 4 and 2 instead of 2 and 4. So he's got 3 big injuries that have really hurt. He is active on waivers. He's, looking to pick up. He's used, less than half so far of his waiver pick up. But the reason I'm giving him a B is, I really feel he did draft well. And granted, a lot of them are injured, but I mean, he took Mostert. And that was right now one of the steals of the draft at very late. If you look at where he was picked, and I don't have it up in front of me, like it was super late. It was like 10 to 12th round when he picked him up, and he's now one of the top running backs, especially due to injury, out there. So that was just a great pickup by Will during the draft. So again, giving Will a B. Moving next, then we've got Jay. Jay is he's one of our first teams then that are at 3 and 3. Jay's also made a trade. Jay hasn't really used his waiver money at all. So I'm giving Jay a C. Potential there. I mean, he's got now waiver money to use during the second half, right? So he's definitely got the potential. But just looking at his team, I mean, he's just got some people on there that I don't know if you would need to cut ties, if you need to make trades. I mean, you've got Cook, who's very unreliable. So is Judy. I know you've talked about trading Judy. Unfortunately, like when you have them in your lineups, like they don't show up, which is why he's sitting at 3 and 3. But again, he's only at 3 and 3. I mean, that's not terrible. That's really close to probably the line where it will be for playoffs and so on. But I just know like there's definitely the potential to be a little bit like all over the waiver wire coming up. He's got more money than what most of us have. So, he's also poised for a strong second half. So, Jay, give a C. Now, Josh. Josh, also 3 and 3. He's also made a trade. He's also very active in waivers. One of the most active. He's only got $30 left. I'm giving Josh a B. And the reason he's 3 and 3. But Josh drafted really, really well. I mean, again, he has McCaffrey. He has Pollard. He's got players with potential. If you just look at some of the other players on his team as well, Ayuk can, have big weeks, and now Lockett, who can have some big weeks and so on. So I definitely think Josh has just player potential on there that we could see definitely help him score some more points for and actually win some games as we kind of move on throughout the season. So, but unfortunately, Josh is still, 3 and 3. But we'll stick with that draft grade of a B because again, or the overall grade of a B because I feel like he had a really good draft. His team is in pretty good shape. Moving on next, we have Clint. Now, Clint has pulled together a string of wins. It shows that he's 3 and 3, but the man's way better than 3 and 3, I feel. Almost exactly what we predicted, that he was going to put together a winning streak, and he sure has. Clint has made a trade. He traded for Kelsey, which is a big plus. I think that's going to be a huge help on his team going forward. He's also very active in waivers. Has just added. If you kind of look at, I was just looking at earlier, like who he's added. Williams, and I know he's out now, but that was a huge waiver pickup, I believe, in week 1 that he added to his team. And he's also got Eckler, and he's got strong quarterback play. I mean, with Tua and Josh Allen. Both on his team, that he's probably in most weeks wondering, which one of those are going to score more points. So for Clint, I'm excited for his team. I think he's managed it very well. He made a trade that definitely is helping him. He is super active with adding talent to his team. So I'm giving Clint an A-. I know he's 3 and 3 and he started out slow, but he's definitely on his way to making a possible playoff run. So Clint gets our first A with an A- for our grades here. So next we have Dez. Dez is also at 3 and 3. Dez hasn't made any trades, and he hasn't used any waiver money. So at first, when I looked at that, I was actually going to give Dez a lower grade. I'm like, there's no way I can give him anything higher than what, a B? Because he hasn't made any trades. He hasn't used his waiver money. But then when you really look at his team, you kind of see why. I mean, he doesn't need to. He drafted very well. I mean, already, look what the scores are now. Like Kamara, seriously, 12 receptions, 91 yards in a PPR league. Like, that's just huge. And he's already scored 30 points this week, and I don't see that changing for that team. And Etienne is a strong, person that he drafted. He's definitely getting the carries and the touches and so on as well. So, I mean, if you really look at his team, he hasn't needed to pick up anybody, but he has still. I mean, I think he's added some people on and off and so on. He just hasn't had to spend any kind of money. He's also one that's dealing with injuries. So he's got, Jefferson and Rodgers both on IR as of right now. So just think of even where he could have been if, Rodgers wouldn't have gotten hurt and he could have been his starting quarterback. And he hasn't tried to, needed to balance through Stafford as of right now and Howell. So with all that being said, I know Dez is 3-3. I know he hasn't done a ton on waivers, but I'm giving Dez an A. I think his team looks amazing. He's got depth. He's managing his team that he drafted very, very well. And he is definitely poised to make a strong run through the rest of the season and possibly make the playoffs. Next on our list is Sean Cash. Sean is also 3-3. He has also made a trade. He is also very active on waivers, using about half of his waiver money. He does have, a little bit higher points for than some of the other teams. That's actually, I think, going to help him. I'm giving Sean a B+. And the reason for it is I think Sean drafted pretty well. And he's got some talent now that I think after some tough games, Stevenson being one, or even Walker, have some high potential on the points that they can score. Gibbs, especially now with some injuries, is going to get more and more of the workload. So I mean, I think Sean's team is looking decent, in a good spot. The reason I didn't give him a higher grade of like an A is just because of, who we see name-wise that can put up some huge, huge games. He's got Hill. Of course, Hill can score 40, 50 points in a game. Definitely he can. But outside of that, I don't see a ton of possibilities of doing that, more than a one-off of like what a Moore did and things like that. So not saying that they can't. Definitely they're all capable of it, but I know when you start playing against somebody who has like a Chase or something like that, who probably can put up 30 points every single week, I think that just might be an issue with Sean. But he's managed his team very well, incredibly active. He's making trades and all over the waiver wire, so I'll give Sean that B+. Next, then, Adam. Adam, another team that we talked about. I picked originally to make the playoffs. He had a slow start, but what he did is definitely helped him so far, and that was he was aggressive. One in waiver wire. He's always on there. I always see his name of picking and dropping players and switching people around. But he made that trade with Jake that got Chase on his team. Now, if you really look at then who was on his team, like strong with Adams, Kupp, and then now Chase, which just, any week when you're getting through bye weeks and so on, like the possibility of putting up a ton of points. Strong quarterback play, and he's been managing through running backs, which, he's doing fine with so far. And also one thing that he has going for him is his points for. 792 points, just because he's had a couple of huge weeks now. And when it comes down to everybody being tied with the same record, those points for are definitely going to be the difference. That's why he's 4th and not 9th with having the same record as, others. It's because of all the points that he put up. So I'm giving Adam an A- so far on there. If he had an even better record, definitely probably would be even closer to the A of like what we gave Dez so far. But I think he's done a phenomenal job of managing through the team, the injuries to Kupp at the beginning, getting through it, and now he's poised to make also a strong playoff push. Next in line, then, we've got 3 to go. Next one is Jake. Jake's 4-2, so you would think he would have a super high grade, but no. I mean, I gave Jake a B, and here's why. I mean, he made a trade, but unfortunately, like he lost Chase because of the trade, and he needed to do it. And I get why he did it, because he needed to get through a couple of weeks. He drafted Jonathan Taylor, which he had to manage through that. So it's definitely helped him win some games. So it was a trade that he needed to do to be poised at 4-2 right now. I just think that it takes that 40-point possibility scorer away, and you're going to end up playing somebody like a Dez, an Adam, an Ian, later in the season, and that's just going to hurt not having somebody who can put up those kind of points. He did draft well, I mean, with Montgomery and Taylor, so I think that will definitely help them. And I know Montgomery's banged up, but the games that he plays, he definitely gets the carries, and so on. And now Jonathan Taylor should be coming back true to form, right, and start getting the ball on a more full-time basis. So I guess we will see. What Jake also has going against him, of course, is his points for. I mean, 619, super low, and that's going to hurt. When everybody's tied with the same record, Jake, you automatically, bam, drop to the bottom. So that's going to be a challenge for you. So, and we'll talk about that when we talk about our playoff predictions. Next in line, that is myself, and I'm sitting at 4-2. And it's me, right? And I'm talking about myself, so you would think I'd give myself a high grade, but no. Honestly, awful. I feel that my team has just won a few games by default and been really lucky. And honestly, one catch away from being, 5-1. But, I mean, I haven't made any trades. I've come close. I've put in a few, and then I've deleted them because for those of you that have been in this league for a while, you just know I don't like making trades. I almost put too much faith in the team that I drafted and ride with them until it's almost too late. I've also been very aggressive on the waiver wire, and I only have $15 left, and that sucks. I don't have a ton of points for it either. I'm definitely in a better spot than Jake, but I'm nowhere near where everybody else is. So for me, I'm giving myself a C+. When I know one of the worst grades that we have for all of us here, but I'm worried. I have strong wide receivers, but I'm still just trying to battle through the running backs and with injury, and hopefully Barkley will be back without injury the rest of the year. But like already, I'm probably going to lose this week. Ridley did nothing this week for me. And there's unfortunately a lot of the backup players that I have, like they don't have the potential to score a lot of points as of right now. So I'm giving myself a C+. Then last but not least, we talk about Ian. Ian, 5-1. He hasn't done any trades. He's barely used any of his waivers. But he's got 101 points for, which is the highest, and I mean, again, one of the most important parts of, other than record, of course, when it comes to seeding and things like that. So definitely he has those going for him. He drafted well. I mean, he's, got strong wide receivers. Drafted Kirk, who's, gets a ton of volume right now over Ridley, it seems like most games. But overall with Ian, it's hard not to give Ian a really good grade. He drafted really well. He keeps up with his team. He hasn't had to do a lot of pickups. He hasn't had a ton of injuries. He's had to get through Jones, of course, a few weeks, and hopefully that is, in the clear now, even though it says questionable, but he'll, when he's back and then producing, because, he'll be the main guy on that team again. Overall, with all that being said, I'm going to give Ian an A, because I think Ian has done a fantastic job with this team as well. He hasn't had to do a lot of maintenance. He just continues to go out and score a ton of points. And then when you play him, you don't score a lot of points, which, I don't know. However you're doing that, Ian, great job. So kind of recap, we ended up giving out, 4 A's? Well, 2 actual A's to Dez and Ian, and 2 A- to Clint and Adam. Those are by far the 4, I think, best teams, not only as of right now, but definitely looking in the future. And if we start really looking in the playoff push, and then kind of everybody else, we're looking, between B and C grades. So that is the breakdown. That's the first half grades for all 12 of our teams. You may agree, you may disagree. If I gave you a bad grade and so on, and prove me wrong. make it better. You've got the second half of the season to make it happen. You know, we've got waiver wire left. We're going to continue to have injuries. We're going to continue to have trades. I'm telling you right now, like, I'm looking for a trade. If you're out there and you're also interested in trading, let me know. Let's see what we can move. I need some depth on my team. I've got some that can score. I don't want to part with them, but, you know, sometimes you've got to do what's best for your team. All that being said, how does that shape out the new playoff predictions then, right, for our team? So I'm going to go 1 through 6, and it's going to go almost most obvious to last in type of a scenario. So number 1 for our playoffs, it's hard to pick against Ian making the playoffs. He's 5-1. He's got the best record. He has the most points for. He's got a strong team. I think Ian cruises the rest of the year and easily makes the playoffs. Number 2 is Adam. Adam, he's only 3-3, but again, it comes down to points for, and he's got a lot of points for. What, I believe second highest now. Yes, for the group, just behind Ian. And he, with that trade, has Chase, strong wide receivers. Definitely think Adam will also go on a big winning streak, do really well the second half of the season. Number 3, I have Dez. Dez, I know, is also 3-3, but Dez has all of his waiver money left, just sitting there waiting for the right pickup that he has on there. He's got decent points for. He's just got a strong team. Again, and we looked at it, his running back, you know, crew is solid, and so on. I just think that's going to help carry him. He's got depth on his team. That's going to help carry him to the playoffs. Number 4, I'm going to say is Clint. Kind of the same thing as what we've been talking about with some of the other players or some of the other teams. Like, Clint has definitely been on a roll. He made that trade. He's got Kelsey. That's going to help him. Even though he's 3-3 now, I definitely think he's going to have just one heck of a second half of the season, and he will also make the playoffs. Number 5, then, to make the playoffs, Sean Cash. Yeah, I know. I'm picking Sean to make the playoffs, but if we break it down on reasons why, yes, I know he's 3-3 right now. You look at his team, and I said he doesn't have a ton of players that I think can, you know, give you 40 points, but he's got a consistent enough team where I think he's going to win enough. His points for are in a good spot. You know he's going to continue to be active. He's probably going to at least make another trade before the end of the year. So I just think that he's going to do what he needs to do to get his team into the playoffs. And then last but not least, it was a struggle. I will tell you, it was between myself, Jake, and Josh. And I looked at schedules, I looked at teams, I looked at points for, I looked at players on the team, I looked at all of that. So I feel it was really close, and I think it will come down to the end of the year where the 3 of us are going to be all fighting for that last playoff spot. But I am giving that spot to me. And no, it's not because I'm biased, because I'm the one doing the videos, but just by looking at it, and yes, I'm going to lose this week to Ian. Already breaking that to you. I haven't done the predictions video yet, but that's what I'm going to say. I already had a bad start to the week. I mean, that puts me at 4-3, but I know I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to look to make some trades. And I have weeks, like out of the next 5 weeks, if I remember right, I'm playing some teams that aren't projected to score a lot of points, that are dealing with some crucial bye with some of their high scoring players and things like that. So just hoping that I do enough to, get that last playoff spot to make it in there. So if we look at then how this compares to my original list, where I had Adam, Dez, Clint, and myself picked to be those playoff teams, but our new playoff teams then are Ian and Sean. I did not pick them before, but I definitely think they have impressed in the first half of the year, where I do think they are now going to make the playoffs, and I ended up taking Jake and Josh out of that. But like I said, those two I feel like are going to be there to the end, probably fighting against me, and easily I could see either of them two overtaking me for that last spot to make the playoffs. But I guess we will see. So there you go. There's your 6 new playoff projected teams. Again, they're not just based on record. I say a lot of 3-3 teams are going to make it, and even a 4-2 team is not going to make it. So we're just not going off a record. So, all right, that's everything we have for today's video. Thank you for listening as we kind of talked through our grading for the first half and then our new playoff predictions. And then look for our next video for the next week predictions here coming out tomorrow. Talk to you later, guys.